Okay, so someone from the ACC is finally acknowledging their position in the marketplace, and it is not very good. This is what the Florida State athletic director said uh, to his board over this past week. He said something has to change because we cannot compete nationally, talking about Florida State, being $30 million behind every year. It's not one year, we're talking about $30 million compounded year after year. Now, I want to kind of go through this for a second here, and this is the most important thing in college athletics today. Y'all can talk about the transfer portal, y'all can talk about NIL, y'all can talk about whatever you want to talk about that makes you feel like college football is going great or going poorly or whatever you want to do. All of that is child's play compared to what we're talking about in broadcasting rights. It's nothing. And the fact of the matter is, we're using NIL and transfer portal as dog whistles for like something we don't like, which is change. The change has been in television contracts for the last 40 years, and you can thank Georgia and Oklahoma very specifically for making that happen in 1983, going into 84, and getting that landmark ruling in the Supreme Court against the NCAA. Florida State, Clemson, Louisville, and Miami, I guess, these schools that are in a situation where their in-state rival is getting $30 million a year so far a year, they are not going to be able to keep up with their rivals in the state. It's just not going to happen. And I just don't know what to say other than, good luck to Florida State, because as bad as Florida is right now, that's not going to continue in the future. I mean, at some stage, Florida will figure it out, and Florida State may figure it out too. But the fact of the matter is that, like Georgia Tech and Georgia are not great. The team to watch here, uh, the two that are the most sort of concerning, if I'm watching this thing, uh, is Clemson and South Carolina, because that is the one school where the SEC school is not the traditional power in the rivalry. And I'll just tell you right now, check back in 10 years and we'll see if what's happened. Now, I know those two schools really well. I am skeptical that South Carolina will pass Clemson, but whatever. And I'm just almost $500 million later, it'd be hard to imagine they won't pass them in some way. Make sure that if you like this sort of information we're talking about right now, click and sign up for our newsletter. It's very awesome. We get it pretty much every day in the off season, except on the weekends, and it gets you all the information that you're missing out on our site, dogpost.com. We can't talk about every single thing we do on these videos. This is just sort of a one-time thing every day. But sign up for the newsletter, and you're going to get it all. So make sure you're signing up. The link is down below. How much money is $400 million? Okay, let's put that into perspective. So first of all, $400 million as it stands today it's $390 million. That is basic. That is going to be the difference between the SEC and the ACC over time. So $390 million roughly. So let's just call it 400. That is with the understanding that the addition of Texas and Oklahoma won't move the SEC and their media contract even higher. I think a lot of y'all know I've done a lot of work on this stuff. I would be pretty surprised if Disney does not play ball with the SEC and make them happy. Use the opportunity of adding Texas and Oklahoma as an excuse to rebalance the contract that the two have until 2034. Make no mistake about it. Disney and the SEC are tied at the hip. They're very successful regional, excuse me, the SEC network is a very important thing. It will add more households now with Oklahoma specifically coming into the league. But make, I mean, that revenue will grow, whether we're talking about just the SEC network alone. Let's say there is no more money added, but just the SEC network. So I think it's fair to say that the SEC will get more money. So what does that mean? What does it mean to have $400 million more minimum over a 10-year period, over about a decade? You could build Auburn's basketball facility that they just built. You could build that 4 times, well, about 4.5 times. So each school could build a new basketball arena 4 times. Georgia could build 4 different basketball facilities for arena, or 4 different basketball arenas. South Carolina could build 4 different arenas. Kentucky could build 4 different RUPs in that time. You could probably, this is my ballpark, you could probably build at least 1 stadium for that amount of money. Is it getting through yet how much difference that this is right now? I mean, forget about the fact that the Florida State athletic director is hitting the nail on the head. People at Clemson are freaking out. I'm just gonna tell you that right now because they don't know how to get out of this thing. Excuse me. The ACC is discussing a change in a change in the distribution of their revenue, but it's still not going to make up $30 million. And the fact of the matter is that if Boston College and Virginia don't want to give Clemson and Florida State more money, they don't have to, and there's not a damn thing either of those two schools can do about it. They sold themselves, they tied themselves together in 2013 and 12. They handcuffed each other together and they jumped off the bridge. They did it so they would not see their league fall apart and go to the Big 12. It was a mistake. It was a mistake. It was looking back on it. I've seen the Big Ten make mistakes. I've seen the SEC make mistakes, but the ACC and the Pac-12 have made the biggest and the most mistakes, and that is going to punish Florida State, Clemson, what's left of Virginia Tech, any notion that Miami would be good. I mean, the two real football schools in the ACC are Clemson and Florida State. And Clemson's had a good decade. They have. I mean, the 20 years before that were just bad. But, Florida State, since Bobby Bowden left, they've won a national championship and got to the playoff, and every other year has been rough. I mean, with with the exception of maybe 2015, every other year has just not been great. So, we'll see where Florida State goes from here. They need to take advantage while they can of the Gators not being very good. But y'all, globally speaking, Florida State's not going to be able to compete with, I mean, forget the SEC schools. I mean, Florida State's not going to be able to compete with, Penn State, Michigan State, Wisconsin. It sounds crazy. It does. But we're talking about $500 million here. And that's just compared to the SEC. The Big Ten's number is larger than that. I mean, it is. The thing about the South is it has great athletes and it has great weather. But when you start talking about attracting players, it comes back to recruiting, which comes back to marketing. And marketing costs money. You have to have opportunity, and there's you got to win and all this stuff. The money will make a huge difference because the difference between where I went to play college sports and Georgia, there's two things. There's two differences. A, the facilities. B, the level of player. Now, maybe not in tennis as much. No, that's for sure, because Division II tennis is the real deal. I can tell you that right now. But the difference are those things. What attracts the players, the facilities. And if you don't have them, you can forget it. And what we're going to see now is, South Carolina has been a disaster for a long time. $500 million later, we're going to see in 12 years. When I'm in my mid-50s, we're going to see where Carolina's really at. We're going to see the difference between them and Clemson. And it's going to, the challenge for Clemson is going to be, how can they claw back? How can they fight back the free money that South Carolina is getting? How are the Noles going to fight back the free money that the Gators are getting? Louisville stands no chance to stick around with Kentucky. They won't happen. And like sports that Louisville is good at, which off the top of my head, that they're better than Kentucky at, maybe women's basketball, they won't be. Why? Because the thing, I'm talking about facilities, but why do you think that, let's just take LSU as an example. Look at the coaches they have in place now. Well, where is the money coming from to pay Brian Kelly or Kim Mulkey? That's money from the athletic department. That has nothing to do with NIL. That has nothing to do with transfer portal. Get it. Get it. That's what it is. Why is Georgia able to, in the near future, Kirby Smart in the near future will probably make about $18 million a year. And when I say near future, I mean, I don't know, 7 years. Oh, that's crazy. It's not crazy. He started at 4.5 or $3.5 million. He started at $3.5 million 7 years ago. He's going to be at like 11 or 12. You don't think he's going to be at 18? Well, if you're at Clemson or Florida State, you're the one that's choking up. You can't keep up with it. You can't keep up with it. And compounding that, okay, and I'll put it like this. Compounding that, Clemson, small school. Comparatively speaking, small school. Florida State, compared to the Gators, smaller school. And it's the alumni. The alumni aren't there. They're not there the way they are at the other schools. The other schools have law schools and all this stuff. It's a real challenge right now with the ACC. They are poorly positioned. Those presidents made a huge mistake, and the commissioner let them walk right into it. Poor leadership all around.